All right, you guys ready? I'm made in lights. We'll see. So welcome. Old faces, new faces. You've been here before too, right?
Nope. First time.
Cool. Stand up and introduce yourself. Just kidding. No.
My name is Dennis. Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Dennis. No, I'll go over briefly real quick since kind of new stuff. So really this group is, we're sponsored by Epic for the Meetup group. So we're the official Kansas City arm of it. So we kind of get resources from them to help out to provide knowledge for them. So that's kind of what we do. In this meetup, I don't know, was that looping at all? Yeah, I'll let it go. But really what it's designed around is to talk about the technical, the business side, job side of game development and using game. So that's what we do here. It's really, I try to bring as much resources to the group as possible. I guess I should say you guys probably know me. I'm Ryan Manning. I actually own Bad Rhyme Games, Game Studio in the city. So we're primarily an Unreal Engine. So that's really what it is, just for you guys resources and stuff. I think I have it up here as well. Yeah, I'll cover this. So if you are new, if you don't mind, the survey is literally like 2 minutes long. It'll help me just to better gauge kind of where you guys are at, what it is that, you know, if you're professionals, hobbyists, game development, stuff like that. Super, super helpful. And then there's a post-meetup survey, which I'll put this back up at the end of it. That just helps me know if I did good, it'd be good if we miss things, and there's other things you guys want to see. Really, I can't stress enough, this is really just tailored for you guys. It's to help you guys grow as game developers or new content. So I try to be broad in the sense because I know we have some beginners, even to advanced levels, so I try to always make sure you guys can enjoy something. And then a couple other things. So our Discord, feel free to join that. That's the link right there as well. That's a resource for you guys. If you guys are working on projects, you have questions, anything, that's the easiest way to get in touch with. And then finally, we are live streaming. We did a soft test last month, and it worked really well. So just be aware that it might get on, but it's fine. And we'll record this as well because I think I have it here as well. Today starts kind of our 5-part series. I think it's 5, it might be 6, but it should be 5. I say that because there's a lot of content to pack into this. What we had shown last month was a kind of a product configurator. I don't know, I think most everybody knows what it is, but it's just a simple, I'll show because I know you guys are new, so I'll just show it. But basically it is a, all those in the reel. What is this, guys? So it's an interactive, designed to be for like a product showcase. You can go in, you can change colors, swap out different things, camera positions, so you can do kind of preset cameras, and even a cinematic render. So this is all running in real time, so I can change out on the fly. So this is what essentially the plan is to have you guys walk away with, is being able to build this for yourselves. Again, nothing super fancy here. It's really just more designed that you've got a product and you want to do some configurations. So that's straightforward. We'll jump into that in a minute. So tonight, going to be broken into 2 parts. Like I said, I'm really going to try to cram a lot in here. So if I go too fast, stop me. Ask questions at any point in time. The first part of this series, of the 5-part series, is the content creation part. So that's the actually taking the visual 3D assets, the materials, and being able to inject those into Unreal, which the subsequent one after this is when we're actually going to do all the configuration, get this up and stuff like that. We'll break it into 2 parts because I'll probably need a break that midway. So, any questions on that stuff? No? Cool. Okay. Awesome. And then, of course, our next meetup is, we're trying to meet on the last Tuesday of the month. Same time, same place here. So, if you guys want that, we'll post the same thing. I'm sure you guys probably saw on Meetup, is where it popped up. I'll put the announcement out, and that will be part 2. Cool. All right. Let's get started. Hopefully this will work. All right. Oh, I am totally lazy. I completely forgot to put the challenge question. Okay. So So this is bad. So each time we try to do a challenge question. This was last week's. Somebody give me one. It's something that's based around game development, film industry, or something. Somebody got one?
Something, you said something from that would be used in the future.
Yeah, this is. I knew I forgot something here. So let me. I'm gonna come up with one off the top of my head. This is actually one that I saw. In your opinion, in regards to artists and programmers, as it relates in the next 10 years, what roles do you see and who do you see being more important? Second to that, do you see artists being phased out because of technology?
Would you like more detail?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I have found in my experience that the way artists think versus the way programmers think is so radically opposite ends
You guys can come and sit down here.
that there will never ever be the concept of there will never be the concept of not needing one or the other. They will always be intermixed, required, because otherwise specialization doesn't work. You know, the artists specialize in making art, and they are fantastic at it. The coders are fantastic at coding. It is rare, it does exist, but it is rare to find someone who's capable of both, and that's why we call them technical artists.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
modelers are going to have a rougher time in the future. As more like substance designer, what I've seen they can do with that, where basically they're creating a whole image, even with depth and that, off of a single plane.
I might actually disagree with that because we've had tools like ZBrush for years. We have no less need of modelers now.
Well, I think he's saying more. Everything's kind of skewing more towards procedural, tools because games in this day and age demand a lot of content. They're all open world. Everyone wants an open world, 70-hour game with everywhere is explorable and all that, and it's impossible to model all that in like the yearly time frame that AAA games are running out on. So people are just emphasizing more procedural kind of skill sets essentially instead of just like
Getting rid of the artist there. It's just their
Different
role
tools.
is shifting.
Are you familiar with the demo scene from about 20 years ago? A group named Farbrosh, I think is how they call them. They were doing procedural content generation to make their 4K demos at the time. 20 years ago. It's the tools have existed for all of this time, and it's not. Few people still use it, but these tools have always existed for quite some time, and it hasn't taken over the industry. I don't see it taking over the industry and replacing the need for an artist's eye ever.
I also think when you get like procedural stuff, it might be in the back of your head, but you kind of know that it's procedural. You can kind of tell that it's not made by something that was not, well, as perfect as it can possibly be.
But could that be a technical artist? Like, it would be more valuable because then you could have, a library that was procedurally generated in 2 weeks and then they just tweak it.
The technical artist is already pretty much the prime what you want if you can get one.
They're the doctors of the artists.
Yes, they really are.
What else? Any other thoughts?
I want to say I saw a news article this week where somebody, I was trying to remember who it was, trying to Google, I couldn't find it, but somebody pretty smart basically said, I don't think AI will ever be considered to be artists. And of course, that's a pretty controversial statement.
Yeah.
But I think AI will do a lot really awesome, but to come up with genuinely new content, I think the artists will still be very necessary.
You do bring up an excellent idea that I would argue that it would create a third category. You know, you would have the human artists and then the AI artists and then the programmers.
Best rate artist out there, paying $2 an hour.
I don't know. They may all find if they really are AIs, they may all rise up and be like, "I want to pay more. I want some more bits here. Give me some bigger space."
You got a virus. Are you kidding me again? No, it's definitely an interesting thing, and we'll move on. But I thought I'd throw that out there because I've seen a number of articles, especially on that with like the AI, advanced learning, DLSS. What NVIDIA is doing is still interpolating, common library to fill in the gaps. And I think it's interesting because artists are usually the ones that get most with that because. But I think that my opinion is that artists will adapt and you'll find new niches and manipulation usually. Definitely interesting. So. All right, cool. So we'll keep going real quick and then we'll jump in. So if you guys don't know too, here are some resources. So I'll let you guys screenshot that. I'll post these up online too. But just some really good things, especially if you're looking for information, things with Unreal. I'm sure you guys know a lot of these, but I figured I'd post them there just in case. Oh, I can tell you too. So a little bit of inside information to know. Epic is making a big push this coming year to provide a lot more enterprise level and advanced training modules. So in the past, they've had little things here and there in their live streams and snippets. I don't know if you guys have seen, I think I put it on here. Maybe I didn't. But they do have a section on the UnrealEngine.com that you can get some very advanced, deep level training, stuff like that. From what I understand, that's actually going to be plussed up kind of over this year and the next year. So some really cool things coming down. And then a couple other noteworthy things for you guys. HoloLens support just come out. I won't open that article, but some really cool things here. The big thing to kind of take away with this one is that HoloLens 2, as it relates to Unreal Engine, is now actually having the native integration on the platform. Whereas HoloLens 1, you would stream the data to it. So that's a hugely good partnership between Epic and Microsoft on that. I guess I should say show of hands, how many of you guys are more interested in like the game development side of things versus like product, marketing, that kind of stuff? So games, maybe a little bit of
Whichever wants to pay me.
person here. So that's actually that's a good thing in that aspect because there's a lot of people, in fact actually military just tried, I think they won a contract or something, or HoloLens won a contract, massive one to try to make this into military stuff, so that's huge. NCAM virtual production, I don't know if you guys know about this as well. Have you guys ever heard of NCAM? Okay. Have you guys ever seen kind of a live integration with digital assets or kind of know that process? Okay. So what NCAM is, and I'll scroll down here, those two little, these guys right here, 180-degree FOV cameras, they're able to take positional and rotational information from a physical camera and translate it into digital space. So what they're kind of showing in these screenshots, you can now do that live integration with a physical camera. So I don't know, I think that this is like a beta stage, but they're integrating it into Unreal. So for example, that car right there, there's no points, no tracking points, but they're using the live data feed and the depth information from that NCAM to then stream it to then augment it with virtualized Unreal Engine. So really cool thing coming up. I will say, I know we talked about it, I think, last time. But this is a huge thing that's taking place right now in the industry. Is a massive shift of using game engines for real-time film. So that's a big leap in there. Can you talk a little bit about it? Jeez. Hopefully, I might adjust. And then this is kind of cool too if you guys want to check it out. The Unreal Engine powers ILM's virtual production toolset. That's actually kind of a cool thing that's come out. Have you guys seen that one at all? A little bit. Okay, I'll show just a little snippet. I won't do the whole thing. It was nothing spectacular.
In production, we jumped
But
from car to car.
Have you guys seen someone?
What this tool allowed us
Okay,
to
so
do
you know
was
the,
to actually surround our
the part where they're on the trains that go around and have the magnetic boots. So in their previs, what ILM did is they used VR and they did a mock-up scene. That's what you kind of see on the left there. And what they used it for is real live measurements, distances. So they would figure out how far they needed to put their stunt doubles, how far they needed to do, the trains that they would do on the gyros. So cool use of previs, saves a ton of money. So this is something I bring it up because it's an interesting niche to get into. So if you guys know game technology and you want to mercenary yourselves out, this is kind of a cool way to do it real quick. All right. Let's see.
Someone asked what
The FPS on the NQ. That's a good question. I don't know, but I want to say, yeah, there's 12 additional sensors in the NCAM hardware, and it runs at 250 frames a second. Yep. And the computer vision camera runs at 120 frames a second. So that's a lot of information being passed. Yeah. That would be a lot of fun to play with, too. A lot of fun. So corny. That's a horrible marketing shot. All right.
That's not what they're using for for like the weather channels that have been doing those weird graphics.
I saw them use Unreal Engine for
Very
something
possibly.
like that.
I don't know if they're using NCAM for it, but I know they are using something very, very similar.
Gotcha.
I think the Weather Channel from America, they actually had marking, tracker markers as well for stabilization. But
Gotcha.
maybe I don't know. So, okay, cool. So let's get cranking away. So this is kind of the roadmap, like I said. So today we're actually going to dive into the asset creation part. I don't think. How many of you guys here are artists by trade? Cool. How many are programmers by trade? Okay, cool. So for the artists, this may be a little bit of a, I kind of know that, that's kind of cool. So what I hope to bring to you guys is a little bit more on workflow optimization. For programmers, you guys will probably love this because I'm going to make it, don't take it personally, you guys probably don't do great art, and so you have to rely on other people. So what I'm going to present to you guys today are ways that you can get to a 90% solution using assets that you don't actually have to create yourself. So that's, yeah, so hopefully that'll be good for you guys. So, okay, so we'll dive in. First thing is Maya. How many of you guys are Maya users? How many are Max users? How many of you use Blender? Nice, okay. I'm a Maya guy myself. I personally prefer to use it. I will tell you that in Unreal Engine, Maya works just a little bit better. You can do Max, but Maya is just a little bit more optimized for that. So, okay. So for the product configurator, this is what we're using. I would love to give this out, but I actually paid about $150 for this on TurboSquid. This is how the model came in, kind of. I'll show you what I changed in there for the intro, but this is just a 3D asset I picked up off of TurboSquid, and then I modified it a little bit myself. So the key points that I want to make note of in terms of injecting these assets into Unreal. The first thing is when it comes to optimization, the beautiful part about what we're doing here with the product configurator is, we have a very basic scene. This is our scene in a nutshell, right? It's not fun around here, guys. Very, very basic. So because of that, we can still achieve an extremely high frame rate, even if our poly counts are much, much higher. And that's actually partly intentional because as this is a product configurator, you can get really close on it. It's better to have some of that detail. So for the artists, this is one of those things. Don't be afraid to jack your poly counts up. In fact, let me go ahead and just show. Yeah. So the final asset we're injecting here is that? Yeah, 323,000 triangles. So it's a little dense, but on On this system, back when I had a little 1060 card, I was doing about 130 frames a second at any given point. So you can definitely pump some more polys in there, so that's totally fine. On the programming side of the house, if you do get a model and it looks way more dense than this, might need to do a little bit of optimization. I won't go into that in this one, but there are some tools to just kind of reduce your poly count. But for the most part, I've seen some configurators that have injected 3.8 million polys. So we could have 20 of these in there and probably still be fine. So, okay. Do you guys, and I'm going to ask you, do you want me to go over any of the modeling aspects that you guys comfortable kind of understanding a little bit? That, you know, this is really just more of an art-based thing where you're creating the asset and all that, but do you guys want me to go into that? No? Okay. Yeah, so, all right, so what do you need to do in order to get this into Unreal Engine? So if you guys remember, in our product configurator, I had gone in, and we'll set this logic up later, but I wanted the ability to be able to individually select various components. Now this is collapsed into a blueprint. I'm going to breeze over this so you guys, because I don't want to confuse too much, but to show kind of what's going on here. Oh, this is our AM one. My bad. I did not include it. You guys can see, let me just expand this. Can you guys see all these little different components down here? So the initial idea, the initial thought I had with this is that I wanted to be able to swap out all the individual components. So you could go in there and you could say, ooh, I want the carbon fiber disc brake, or I want the stainless steel can. So all of these components, when I brought them into Unreal, I wanted them individually selected. Now the logic's there that you still could, but we just did some pre-configurations. So in order to do this appropriately, and also to work well within our workflow for the assets, I'm going to jump back to Maya. I broke out all the individual components that you can see over here to the components that you saw in Unreal. So we have the saddle, we have the various bolts. That was partly because I thought maybe we'll do carbon fiber bolts, maybe we'll do painted bolts, maybe we'll do stainless steel. The rear wheel, the front wheel, bottle cage. So all these components are broken out. So as this relates to artists and programmers, for artists, this is just, you guys probably know this workflow when exporting, that you want the individual assets you can call. I'll show you how this relates to Substance Painter in a minute, but for programmers, this is one of those things as well that if you know you're going to be changing out components, it's good to have them individualized, assemble them in a blueprint so then we can call them out each individually. So if you wanted to cycle them through them. Does that make sense?
Are you doing the animation within here, or is it going to be within Unreal?
So the animation itself is a baked out animation from this, but we do hook it up to a timeline so we can do a smooth curve. Okay. So yeah, so that the key takeaway that I want you guys to know with the modeling aspects of it is just to make sure that your poly counts are good, and then when you break out those components the way that they are, I'll show you how that translates into Substance. Oh, also another thing as well is to be aware of is that your how many of you guys are familiar with like UV space and texturing and stuff? Okay. So I open up the UV editor. Actually, let me open up materials. So it may be a little difficult to read, but all the materials are assigned to that exact same hierarchy you see here. So we have, like a shifter, which goes to our, I think I call it the shifter here. The sensors go to the sensor, the saddle. So each of those components has its own materials. I'll show you that. So we'll move on to that one. Just double check. Yeah, cool. So any other further questions on modeling? No? Okay, cool. All right, so we've got our materials assigned and we have each of the individual components. I would then go in and export this out as an FBX because my next pipeline, and this is part of what, just how I wanted to set it up to show you guys, is to take it into Substance Painter. Now, I know we've talked about this in the past. How many of you guys have used Substance Painter? Okay, 3. Okay. How many of you guys are interested in learning kind of it a little bit? Okay, that's the case. So, super cool tool. I won't go too deep into it, but it's an awesome way of being able to paint in real time, assign materials, do things like that. So when I imported this, the key thing to take a note of is on the right-hand side, those are all of our materials. So I've got bolts, bottle cage, all that stuff. The reason for that is I can go into here, and that's my frame. So I'll use this one as an example to kind of show setup. But each of those is basically the same thing. If you remember from our configurator, if I launch this, that I wanted to present the user with, I think it's five different paint choices. But if you notice each one of these, if I go to the red one, the handlebars are different, the brakes are different, the seat's different. If I go to the carbon fiber, we have different wheels, different frame, so on and so forth. So I need to go in Substance Painter and actually create all these variations, create all these textures. So let me jump over back to here. So to do that, and again, let me know if this is getting too deep, if I'm not getting deep enough. But the process with that is, I'm going to go and write this. So when the model is imported, it kind of looks like this, right? That's our gray geometry. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new folder here just to do everything. Let's call it variation 5. And now what we need to do is we need to associate materials to it. But before we do that, again, this is if you guys are learning something like that. The first thing you need to do is bake your mesh. So if you go to bake that mesh, you'll have all your normals, wool space, ID, image, moving, curvature, position, thickness. What you guys need to take away from this one is Substance Painter works best when you have all those maps, and it can bake them for you. Now I won't do it because they've already been kind of pre-baked ahead of time. It can take a minute, but you can use the defaults if you want to, and just bake all texture sets. That's what these are over here. So we'll bake all the maps, the individual maps that we need. I'll show you how that kind of relates. So with this, we want to start kind of applying some material, right? This is what we're going to create our materials, export our textures out back to the engine. Substance does ship with a bunch of materials. This one is kind of limited right now, but there's also a cool little feature that you guys can take advantage of, and that is Substance Source. How many of you guys have heard of Substance Source?
It's awesome.
Cool. Okay, so this should be one of those things for you programmers that should be kind of a godsend. And what I mean by that is these are PBR, so physically based rendering. They're pre-built materials that you can download. So for example, like this car paint, custom flake, right? I could go in, I can just actually we'll just do it real quick. I'll download it. I'll save it in here. So now I've got this kind of purple metallic iridescent thing, and I can import it. So we do this way. I'm navigating right now. So they're custom. Like, so I can just drag and drop it into Substance Painter, and then I just need to define it as a. Nope, it did not want to do that. Let's see, resource. I'll be honest with you, normally I just drag these into my my shelf. There we go. And we'll just import it into, there we go. Okay, so there's our car paint now. So I can just drag this up in here, and it will create my material. And that is absolutely hideous. It kind of looks like chocolate. So, minus the fact that this is not that pretty, here are the important things for you to do. So, inside of here, we can go in and we can actually change the color all we want. So we can make this kind of hot pink, green. We can go through. What's cool about these substances, again, these are things artists can create and expose different parameters, but we can go for like flake density, so we can make it not as flaky, scale variation, roughness, orange peeling. Each material will kind of have its own parameters in there, but the cool part is that you can just go through, drag some sliders, and create the look that you want. So I'm going to delete this. I'm just going to show you kind of what I set up here for this is the variation 3. So the way that this was set up, take this down. I'll go back from the start. So I simply use this base kind of car iridescent paint. This is something that you can download from Substance Source, and I dragged it in there, and I simply just changed the base color and a little bit of the flake, the paint flake, and it gave me, kind of this result. So it's got a little bit of sparkle, and it's kind of a little matte. I then went in and I added, and this is kind of cool, you can add different layers, and I just affected my metallist channel and simply bumped it up a little bit, so it gave it just a little bit more depth and made it feel like there was aluminum underneath it, as opposed to just fresh. And then I simply copied part of what came with this asset, and this could come from other artists, it could come from assets, but in there was a decal pack. And so I simply just imported that texture, I kept the alpha, and then applied it over the top and gave me my details. So nothing fancy there. The same thing goes for all the other variations. So my green variation. Now my decals, I did do a little bit of a hue shift on it, but it's the same process here. We've got the car iridescent paint, we've added the decals over top, and I've simply just done a hue shift. So instead of being red, you can see in the variation one, same thing. I just used a carbon fiber material, which I thought was kind of cool, right there. And then added the decals over top. So pretty simple, straightforward. There's nothing really complex. Again, all of these things, the materials themselves you can find on Substance Source. Throw them in there, adjust some of the parameters, and then you have your variation. So does all that make sense? Pretty straightforward. Okay. Good. Like I said, I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys pretty quickly. I mean, this is a deep program in itself. So yeah.
There's one thing I don't understand. On the UVs, the shape of the bike, did that get generated when they baked all of the different channels?
No, so that would have been an artist thing. Like I said too, because I bought this off of Turbo Squids, where I bought this one. This was already done by an artist, and this was because I paid $150 for it. It was already pre-UV. So if I go in and just select the frame, I'll open up our UV editor here. Let me go ahead and dim that. So those are the UVs for the actual mesh. And you can see in Substance, they match. So yeah, so you're going to want to generate those UVs. You have to generate those UVs in your DCC program, so max or minor. And then when you import it, that's what will come into Substance. Okay. So yeah, at this point, the process that I took is I created all these different variations. Now, to keep things nice and logical, every single one of our texture sets, because you remember we have to do this for our tape, our shifter, our wheels, and all that kind of stuff. So to do that, I created just each of these with the same naming convention of VAR. So my variation 1, variation 2. Now I'll go to, I want to say that it's the rear derailleur. Let's see this guy. So with the rear derailleur, let me go ahead and just sew this guy. The only difference with him is that I didn't need all the variations. I didn't need a painted derailleur. I really only needed our base, which is kind of this, I want to say carbon fiber.
Oh my God.
We'll let it refresh here. Yeah, so this was the base, it was a carbon fiber. And I thought, well, for my variation, I think what I want to do is like a stainless steel. So in this case, that was only two instances, or 2 variations of it. But the exact same process. Decals applied over top, and then aluminum. I did, in this case, 2 of them for artists. I did 2. One which was a shinier one for the parts that didn't get as much wear, and then I bumped up the roughness on the parts that were like the spigots that moved. So, real simple. So from this process, I went through, and we go through every single one of our texture sets and do the same process, create as many variations as we want. Okay. So once our variations are done, we just pull these back up. And we have those. The next process that we need to do is we need to export the textures. That's going to be the big key. So in our product configurator that we have running here, to help you guys understand what's happening here. So we have all of these different textures. We have all of these different options available. And when we press one of these buttons, that's all that they are, it's visual, it could be whatever. When we press those in the blueprint, it's calling those different variations that we want that we'll set. So I know that I wanted for my red and white one, I wanted the white handle variation, which could have been variation 3. I wanted the white seat, which could have been variation 2. The frame, which is variation 3. Makes sense? Like, so you're actually just calling those variations. The big key that I would recommend, this is what I'll show you, is making sure that those textures make sense when we export them. Because if you have to dig through 100 different textures in your naming convention and say, that's a pain. So to do that, I'm going to go into export textures. And I'll show you here. So there you can see all of our texture sets. You can use the checkboxes, export them all at the same time, which is kind of nice, or individually. The big key here that I want you guys to kind of go away with is your configuration. In Unreal, we know that we're going to need a diffuse map, we're going to need a normal map, and we're going to need at least our aim and occlusion, roughness, and metals. I talked about it in a previous talk. I can briefly go over it, but the best thing to do for your aim and occlusion, roughness, and metalness, as those are grayscale values, it makes no sense to have 3 individual texture maps. It makes more sense to collapse them down into one. Are you guys familiar with how to do that, or what a collapse kind of texture is? The nice part about Substance Painter in this process is you can actually specify that. So if I do just a new preset, I won't call it anything, but I can do a red, green, and blue, so they're all collapsed, and I can do my converted map. I'll just do actually base color. So I'll drag and drop it over here from base color to RGB, and then I'll just call this. You can use, if you click this little $sign, you can actually do what the thing is. Texture set is best in this situation because when we export, I want them to match my full sim, bottles, bottle caps, breaks, not the project, because I need them individualized. So I'll do texture set underscore, and I'll just call it BC, base color. So all my base colors will export. I'll create another one, which is my RGB. And we'll do the same thing here. I'll just copy and paste. Call this texture set underscore N for my normal. Drag and drop my normal into the RGB channels. And then the last one that I want to do is this R plus G plus B. You notice the little difference here? I've got my individual channels as opposed to a single. So what I can do here now, I'll copy this guy. And I'm going to name him ORM, or you can name him ARM. It doesn't matter. What you want to associate is ORM, occlusion, roughness, metalness. So whatever you're putting in the channel, so if you did roughness, metalness, and occlusion, you would do RM. Makes sense? I do find that when you do this particular setup, when it exports, if you flip those, Unreal will sometimes recognize that map as a normal map. So you have to go in and you have to change it. We'll change it anyways, but in this case, ORM, all I have to do is go into here. I can do my mixed AO, and drag it into here for my aim occlusion, or you can do the aim occlusion here. Mixed AO is better. And then our roughness, so we'll find our roughness channel, drag and drop, gray channel, and then our metalness, drag and drop there for the gray channel, and that's it. So keep this preset in your project. It'll save on your shelf so you can use this in the future. And that is it. So I'm going to jump back.
Pause a second.
Yeah.
Why the name of the texture first and then the type after it, as opposed to doing the type first and then the name of the texture?
You could. However, I find that when you do import it, that, for example, I want all of these together. So if we were to import all of these textures in the same folder, and you would have ORM, normal, and everything, all of your normal maps would be together, and then all of your inclusion. You can do that, it's fine. But in this case, a lot of times, if you're doing master materials, you're doing individual materials, you probably just want the materials associated with that. So if I want, my crank set, base color normal, and my ORM map, those will all be together by using the texture section first.
Okay.
So then you can just go through, and it's easier picking. So there's nothing really there. The only thing I would recommend, again, this is just a workflow, is using a common and consistent naming convention in the suffix. So the underscore, name those. I'll be honest with you, it doesn't make sense to type out base color. It doesn't make sense to type out normal or aim occlusion roughness, because then your characters get really long. So quick naming convention, you can use that, that's fine. So we'll do that. In fact, actually, let me show you guys another little thing too for artists. You guys may appreciate this one. Oh, I don't have it.
Isn't there also a character limit, or did they get rid of that?
No, there is 255 characters.
Okay.
And that's from the root. So if you have your C drive, colon, slash, 255 characters. So that's why it does help to kind of name it. This is one of the presets. I just expanded one down. This is from our cache. In our studio, one of the things that we do for our artists is we try to do a all-encompassing export preset. Because there's situations we've run into in the past where we needed certain maps and things. We go back like, oh man, we really needed the curvature map, but we have 300 assets that we don't want to go through. So we kind of created this all-encompassing one, which you guys can do too. So we export out a normal map, a diffuse and occlusion map together, a diffuse map by itself, diffuse and emissive channel, a curvature, roughness, ambient occlusion, metalness, and emissive. Like we go through and we just cover all of our bases. You guys can feel free to do that. That's totally fine. It's up to you. But for this one, really all we need is just these, what would be, I guess, 5 channels. Base color, normal, occlusion, roughness. Okay, so once our export preset has been set, we'll just select it. Now in this case, I was lazy and just kept it as new export preset. But if you notice now, all of our channels have that export preset. And as I said before too, because we use that wildcard, the texture set, which can be selected from here, you can see that bolts are going to have bolts MPC, bolts MN, bolts M Laura. You can, if for example you forgot to name something that comes as like material 2 or something like that, you can always right click on these texture set lists and rename them. And that's what will propagate into your export preset. So, okay, so I'm just going to do the frame for right now. We'll just do this guy. So we're going to have frame M, BC, N, and ORN. Now, this is one thing that does kind of suck. I'm sure that there's a tool that could be created for it, but for now, I'll just show you the manual process. But if you guys remember, let me jump back over here. Hopefully it's saved. On my frame, I have 4 variations, right? Well, technically 5 with this. So in order for me to export that, I will have to go through each one of these, select one, and that's what's going to export. So when I export out the frame, I'm only going to get what's visible right now. So this is variation 1. So I'll go back up, export textures. I'm hoping that it's saved for me. Yes, it is. Cool. So frame. I'll throw this there. No, it's fine. I got this down. So with this, I'm going to just do we'll do PC project, substance. Okay. So what I did with this one is I just created a new folder within my project with my source files, and I created the 5 variation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in that, I'm just going to do a new one here just so we can see. So I'll select my var 6. That's where I'm going to put this particular one. Select my new preset. There it is. So I'll get my base color, a normal map, and my ambient occlusion roughness. I'll set it as a PNG. 8 bits is totally fine. And then I'll just keep everything as a project default. One of the things that is really nice about using Substance Painter is that you can actually do upwards of 4 and 8K textures and work in lower stuff. So super, super cool. All right, so I'll use my frame. I'll go ahead and export. And we'll see. So I'll go ahead and open the folder. And there we go. So we've got our base color, we've got our normal map, and then we've got our occlusion roughness and metalness. Does this map make sense to you guys? What kind of the weird shape that it is? For the most part. Okay. I'll actually let me jump in Unreal because I know we have that one. I'll show you guys just real fast on this one. So we got road bike, textures, frame. And I'll open one of these guys. So in this at ORM, because we had those individual channels, that's our red channel, so that's our ambient occlusion. Our green channel, that's our roughness. And then our blue channel is our metalness. So all of that is combined together. Again, that's the beautiful part about using one of these collapsed textures is that we're using one texture, but we're getting 3 uses out of it. So great on GPU overhead. Very critical if you guys can do anything on mobile. You're gonna need those. So, Okay, so we'll jump back to substance. So that is the general workflow of that. So I create my variations, I go and I export, I put my textures out, and then we'd import them to Unreal. Any questions about that? I know those of you know the program, you know the workflow. For those of you guys who don't, does that make sense?
Can that be done without Substance Painter if you don't want to shell out the cash?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, the takeaway for that is, I mean, Substance makes it nice, but you can do the textures and stuff. Go back to just kind of the thing that you pointed out. You can create those different materials and you can export them in whatever program. If you did them in Photoshop, you did something else, that's fine. The key to remember here is that when you import these assets into Unreal, it's going to remember your material association. So on this particular one on the frame, I have one material. I could have two materials, I could have three materials. When you import those meshes into Unreal, let me just open some and I'll show you guys. You're gonna have those right on the right-hand side. You're gonna have, in this case, I had two material slots in. So that's where you would associate those. We would create the materials in Unreal. That's ultimately what we're gonna do, and then just assign those. So however you get those textures is totally your call. The nice part, and why I brought up Substance Painter, the reason why Substance Painter is nice is because you have that massive library of physically based rendering stuff. In fact, I even have an automotive pack that has calibrated automotive materials. So you know they're going to look good in a physically based environment, which is Unreal. So in Substance, you can see those in real time, and then of course go in and manipulate them. So if I take like this carbon fiber, I could go in. Oh, actually, that's the base. There we go. I could go in and say like Photoshop and do some other tweaks, but in Substance Painter, the beautiful part is I can actually see this in real time. So I can take my carbon fiber and do something absolutely hideous with it. You know, all within relatively real time. And what's cool about Substance as well, from an artistic standpoint, is what we're seeing inside of here in this viewport is really close to what we'll get in Unreal. So that's very, very helpful. And that's actually coming back from my old school days of having to do things in Photoshop, which was tweak, export, reload, tweak, export, reload, tweak, export, reload. It was a pain, but it's all we do.
It looks a lot better on the screen.
Okay, I think then, let me double check. Yep, we ran out of Substance Source. Okay. Any questions about that workflow or anything that you guys want to cover that I didn't cover? I know it's a lot. But hopefully you guys see too that it's a lot of rinse and repeat. You know, I'm creating the variations. Why I chose this program over others is that it allowed me to create, you know, the variations that I wanted. I could see them in real time, and then I could export and have all the maps that I needed, and then after that I can simply just dump it in.
Do you ever use the Substance plugin for Unreal?
So I have in the past. I'll be careful on this one. I don't see a real big need for it. For those of you guys that don't know, so Substance, everything that you see here with like the different materials and how you can tweak them, the Substance plugin in Unreal actually exposes those parameters inside of Unreal. So you can go in and tweak these on the fly. You know, so for example, I know some that I've tested in the past are like mud, rock, and water, where you can adjust the water level height, which is really cool. So in Unreal, it's kind of nice to be able to tweak that and see it. The reason I don't use it is from an optimization standpoint, and then also a master materials control. So when you import those substance files in, it creates a material, and basically what it's doing behind the scenes is dynamically tweaking your texture maps, is what it's doing. So that's what's updated. But what I found in our workflow, because I'm a huge proponent of master materials, I have additional controls over like color tweaking, roughness tweaking, do variations. It gets pretty deep. And so I usually found that I would take those substance materials and just break them put them in my own master, and it works pretty well. But after that point, it's kind of a 50-50. Like I would adjust the texture, and I'm like, well, my controls. So, nothing against it. It works really well. I think it's kind of cool. You can do it. But we did find out too, because we are PlayStation developers, that was a bit of a pain. Because Substance needed to nativize on the PlayStation hardware to be able to generate, and that was a little quirky. So you get a lot of gray textures at times. I think they've since fixed it, but in the end, I just prefer using the textures and materials.
This way is safer, therefore.
Mhm.
And then it might be a little off topic, but still with this is,
Yeah.
do you think we're still going to be using Substance after Adobe has bought everything? Or is that going to go the way of...
You just killed a kitten by saying that.
Yeah.
No, we actually talked about this.
I can't remember if we talked about it,
I wish I had a global.
Come on, you're making them tell the future. Let's let that
Yeah.
be.
I will tell you this, if I'm being honest, I have my hesitations. We're live streaming, so I know this is going to be recorded and kept on the internet. Adobe has had a history of killing products. And my fear is that Substance will kind of do that. I mean, as much as I know the guys, a few of them in Logarithmic, and they're very good. They have been absolutely dedicated to indies in particular, but the industry as a whole in providing great tools. I think that with a monster powerhouse of Adobe, it's only a matter of time before Adobe says, yeah, that's nice, shut up now, we're calling shots. So I would say continue to use it. I love it. There's really no other tool out there right now that does it.
Right.
We have a question.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman that wants to know when we'll be doing programming for this series. Are we going to be doing programming for this series?
Yes.
And which one? Do you know?
Actually, the next one, I think we're going to start doing some of the integration of it. Damn programmers. Okay, cool. Any other questions before we break? No? Great, okay. We'll take like a 5-10 minute break. All good? Cool. And everybody stays seated.
You guys are online today?
Well, actually, we did a soft test. Yeah. So there's the room right there. This one's the cam. You can see it here. But yeah, we're
I'll say I'm safe, thank you. I had to just respond back.
Only social media.
Well, we're saying because we had some people like he drives 3 hours to get here. Yeah. So and then some of this too, we had some other people that.
Is that you? Okay. It's okay.
But yeah, so that way people watch. We're recording it too. So. Oh shit! It didn't record. Surprise! Yeah, I'm not watching. Yeah.
Is it Facebook live stream or is it?
No, this is we're actually just streaming to Twitch.
Oh, Twitch?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Ryan, you got 2 mods, real life mod, Twitch mod.
Hashtag mod life. Is it?
I don't want to interrupt.
So we have that there. Do you need a reminder?
I don't know. I've thought about getting like a lapel mic
Well,
just to see.
we have mics that will like broadcast that will do a sound system here.
The thing is, I'd have to plug them into this machine though to make those work.
No. The ones that go over the sound system here?
Oh, you're talking like the broadcast my voice.
Yeah.
Be interesting. Good try that.
Okay. 'Cause we have-
Hello, Kansas City.
we have
The Poe would be good. I guess we could try that. Just see.
Ready to game day. You want to do that day or are you like?
No, we can. I turned up both microphones now, so hopefully I'm loud enough.
Say, it did help. Text.
I'd like to shout at everybody. So now we put this in.
Start yelling off his books.
Is this your machine?
Hmm?
Is this?
It's a brave little toaster. It just got a case upgrade because I couldn't fit a GPU. You know, had to really just
It's fun to watch the
I was
colors.
gonna say, I've never seen that.
I feel like a cat, just like.
my daughter loves watching it. She's like, yeah, LEDs, man.
What are you gonna do? Like.
It's a great. I love this little machine because it's got the 8700K in it, so it's 10 core processor, so 20 cores. Liquid cooled, 32 gigs of RAM. It's got a 2060 card in it now, but like the whole system screams, and I spent $1,200 to build it. And this thing will run damn near everything. So when people come up and they say, you know, oh, I need to run an Unreal project or VR, it's like, you see my toaster. No man, we need Alienware with like 3 graphics cards. And I'm like, your developer's not that good because this thing screams.
That's incredible. Very impressive.
Well, people buy GPUs in 2017 are just like, why?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go to the restroom real quick.
So when I was in parts, we had to do like one extracurricular semester, and that was just hard. I didn't know. Meeting program.
Even though
Well, all I got's a 5. Goodness knows how much change that would be.
Oh, I had 2 ones, it's just so big, the second one.
I know. That's why I was offering if I had $1, I'd just change it out and maybe it'd work.
It was dollar, like I said,
How much does it
I put it in quarters.
We're not major today, so.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there was a $1.75 item in there, and that would be this quarter plus what you put in. Plus
I think
$1.
you are. I think so. I think it's on ours.
But the 57 is going
Just 8.
It just seems a little longer than it was last time.
okay. I'll edit something on there.
You've come a long way. Just to do it. Not only I came a long way, but I don't care if that's it's like, what, 3 hours to get? Yeah, you get to use 45.
Yeah, I actually, we're supposed to and I got that without traffic or anything. What kind of simulation do you need to
I'm so sorry.
And then I got here about 4 o'clock. That's what your ideas.
You were right. You guys taking soda.
Normally I leave it to sure. Today, it's like, okay, it's not my day job. It's really good.
Well, I do, let's see, now, you're doing some time on I'd go to lunch.
Yeah,
I do. I'm grabbing it out, but it's not. It's not much. No, but it's not. So when you put that in simulation, you want to hit
So we're the last right now.
well, it was 50.
I'm gonna hit 10, 7 minutes.
Yeah, and especially with all toggles we're creating from all the.
Might have been the setting I need to
Yeah.
reset on there.
Yeah.
It's been crazy.
There's some car eating ones up north by me.
I've driven downtown for work and it's about to destroy my car trying to get down there.
That is interesting. There's flatbeds carrying cargo boxes and things on the side. Kind of aluminum sides, you know. And so the aluminum started peeling off the side, doing gunshots, and it was ripping off panels off of the side screens. What kind of something? You gotta let it on the road, you know. 10 foot, 5 foot aluminum sheet, and you know, smashed it, avoid one, put it aside, got running before the next one.
Yeah.
Good work. You lost something. It wasn't married.
Like, I don't get it.
I'm hoping that it's going to record on Twitch because Streamlabs decided not to record. I may have to do a voiceover. Meeting for exactly 1 hour and 30 minutes. Yep. All right, you guys ready? We'll go to the next part. Okay, cool. Okay, so I was thinking, as an interruption, like I know this is a ton of stuff to be thrown at you guys, so I'm sure that there's going to be questions. So absolutely, we'll do this. This part should be a little bit quicker than we had in the beginning. This is really going to be more just around getting our assets into Unreal now. So just to recap, so our first process inside of Maya, so our DCC program, is we're going to want to select all of our assets, which again we broke out into the individuals that we knew we wanted to control. You can do export, you can use the game exporter. Same thing is going to be applied through both of them, which is we just need to export it as an FBX. Little trick here, we could export this setup as a single FBX. The key to note is that when we import this, it's going to ask us if we want to combine our meshes. If you don't check it, it will break it out per every individual asset, which is great. That's kind of what we would want because ultimately that's what we're going to have it with. And it will break those out per each of the name. So, make sense? Cool. Okay. The next part is inside of Substance Painter, where we have all the variations. Again, we'd go through, show the variations we wanted for each one, go up to our export textures, export all of them. Let me see, I've got it here. And I simply broke those out, so each variation. So this is all of my variation 1. One thing to note is that in my export preset, I made sure that when I exported, so export textures, oh, I'm not, my bad, I'm sorry. There we go. So in here, I just simply went into my configuration and I simply just changed like underscore bar 1. Then I went back. So now when I update, now I've got my bar 1. So then that way in each of my folders, because again, this is going to come in handy, all of them are going to be named the same. So crankset underscore M underscore D diffuse, but I have an underscore V1, underscore V2, underscore V3, so on and so forth. It's a little bit easier once we get to the assembly part, since we're going to have so many textures to rehook up. This makes that a little bit easier. So export our textures out, each of the variations, and then now it's time for our assembly inside of Unreal. So to do that, I've simply created a couple different folders, and this will be for our setup. We need an anim blueprint for our animation information, BP for our blueprint, materials, obviously for materials, M for meshes, and textures for textures. So in our meshes, I could simply just drop the FBX in there. Do you guys want me to show you that process? I assume probably everybody's aware of it. A little bit.
When you export the FBX, are you doing the base mesh first and then animation and stuff?
Yes. Yeah, because we'll have the meshes and we'll hook it up. So I'll go back here. So project, actually I think I'll go back here, Q4. So there's my road bike FBX. I'll actually just do this as kind of I'll show you guys here. Don't do this on yours. I'm putting the import folder here. So I'll just drag and drop this in here. Something to note too, you don't actually have to have the FPX in your Unreal project. You can have this live wherever else. It'll just reference to it. So I'll drag it in, and then a couple things here that we'll need to know. I love the little carrots. Always expand them because there's always hidden stuff in there. That's good to know. Auto-generate collision, we're fine on that one since we're going to be ignoring collision anyway. It's not interacting from a character running into a standpoint, so that's fine. This combined meshes, traditionally you would probably use combined meshes because you just want a single asset, but in this case, because it's one FBX, we don't want combined meshes, so I'll keep that unchecked. And then everything else is probably fine. The only thing I don't want to do is I don't want to import materials, and I don't want to import textures. Just so you guys are aware, what that's going to do is not import the materials and textures we created. It's going to import from Maya, you can see here, this material. So I think it's a frame. I'll expand this out. It's going to import this. So it's going to import that frame bump.jpg, frame diff.jpg, and create this material, which is not what we want because we're creating our materials. So I will keep that unchecked, so don't import textures, don't import materials, and I'll just do import. And there it goes, there's our meshes. So 19 total meshes, and they should pop up here in a second. Cool part about this too is because it does create a relative leakage. If you notice something in your export, you're like, oh crap, I didn't have the right thing or it's not named right, you can always go re-export the FBX out and click re-import and we'll bring everything back in. So, all right, we're gonna ignore these because those are known, but there's all of our meshes. So we have our frame, there we go. And if you remember when I showed you first too, we had those two materials associated with it for the bolts in the frame. We can see those up there. They're blank now, world grid material is the default, but that's totally fine because we're actually going to swap those out in real time. So there you go. So there's all of the meshes imported. Again, that was from Maya, export as an FBX. Fine, just going to use some of the default settings and then import. Any questions on that one? No? Okay, cool. For the textures, just a little bit differently here. I actually created these based off of each of the components. So these are associated with materials, the meshes. It's up to you if you want to do this. You can do variations, doesn't matter. For example, like my bolts, there's all my bolts. The frame, this is where we can see. The reason why I did this is in my optimization, I found that there were some maps that I didn't need to have multiple modes. For example, my normal map for my frame was exactly the same. I didn't do anything really different with it. So there was no point to me to have frame N version 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's 4 additional texture maps to load on GPU. And then frame caps, pedals, all that, yada, yada. So that was the import. And that process was just as simple as, I'll use this import one as another example too. If I go into our substance and our export stuff, that's just simply a matter of just dragging and dropping. Nothing fancy in that one. There is one thing that I do want to point out. So I'm going to take, if you guys are probably wondering, you probably see a lot more maps than we had in our preset. This again goes back to, I just used a preset that we use at our studio, so I got all the maps I might ever need exported out. I don't need to import all of them, I just need the specific ones. So I will do, let's actually just do this for version 2. So I'll do crankset NV2, the occlusion, and my diffuse. I'll just drag those in. Okay, there we go. We can leave those by default, that's fine. I'm gonna make a note of something real fast on here. So, compress without alpha will help save a little bit of texture memory. The thing to understand is that any of the settings we change on this side is affected in our bakes. So when you go to package your product, it will go through all these and apply those settings. You'll see some of those in real time. But for example, if I wanted to go into, I'm trying to remember where this is at. But for example, like this texture right now is a 2048 by 2048. But let's say that I brought it in as an 8K map, right? Absolutely huge, humongous, a lot of information to process on the GPU. I probably don't want to use that. There is a way that we can go in here, and I am drawing a blank right now, but there is a way that we can actually go in and set there it is, right there, maximum texture size. So for example, I can take this down to a 1024. So imported display. I'll take it down so it's really crappy. You guys can kind of see the pixelation there, a little bit, maybe. So at runtime, when I go to cook this map, it's going to compress this. It's going to change this texture map to a 512 map. So you can still import some really, really high-res stuff and then just simply change it in the texture. So when you go to cook and bake it, you're now getting the cost of a 512 map. Again, you're going to have that same fidelity that you would see in the 512 map, just letting the engine handle it. Does that make sense?
I would like to point out there are many cases where you definitely want to do that so that your source assets are ridiculously large.
Yep.
So that you end up being able to support devices that can handle that for a high-end device.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of times, especially when authoring assets and textures and stuff, you usually try to use a 2 times rate. So if you know your target is a 2048, a 2K map, go ahead and author it at 4K. So you have that information. That's a good point. So, okay, so that's the same thing that happens with this compress without alpha. It's simply just when it goes to cook it, it's going to disregard that alpha. A small change, but something to keep note of. The second thing that I want to point out is, if you remember, we created that layered texture, right? Our occlusion, our roughness, and ornamentalness. By default, the engine is going to bring it in under the compression settings as DXT1531, which is an RGB map. So what I mean by that is, without getting too technical, RGB space, if you imagine it as a curve for color, is slightly curved, it's slightly bowed. So you're going to get a little bit richer colors, a little bit deeper. It's partly why you use that. In this situation, because we're using our grayscale maps, it's linear color space. So if we kept this as default, you would notice your roughness, it would look a little off. It'd be like, I don't remember it being this sparkly, I don't remember it being this shiny. So just remember, whenever you create these layered textures that are layered grayscales, you want to change those to masks, no RGB. What that's going to do is just toggle this RGB flag. It's going to turn it off. So now this will become a linear texture in our linear color space as opposed to our RGB. So it's very, very critical. Make sure you guys do that on your ORMs. Otherwise, you're going to notice, like I said, some weird problems. Cool. I'll show you guys another little technique here too. So for example, if I had, let me find a
Does
good
that
one.
last thing apply to normal maps?
No, by default. So I mentioned a comment earlier. Remember when I said if you do like a roughness and occlusion map or like a RAM map or something, the engine will sometimes recognize it as a normal map. When you import a normal map, because of the color that it brings in, it typically auto-categorizes it as a normal map. So this one was already switched to a normal map before we do the thing. But yeah, if you do end up switching your textures and you find that all your ORM maps come in as, or RAM maps come in as normal maps, you need to change that. But there's a cool way to do that. Fun little trick here too. So I'm just going to take all 4 of these guys that I know my ORM maps. Now these are already done ahead of time, but I'll show you as well. But if you go under asset, asset actions or right clicking, bulk edit via property matrix, I can go in for all of these guys and I can go in and change any of these settings. So for example, I think, I love how they put this down here, right here. So mask RGB. So by default, it was set to the default. I could just go in, set mask no RGB, and now all of those have been changed. So I don't have to manually open click. Just set them there, and then they'll save. Cool. Okay. So after that point, we simply we get everything imported, all of our assets, everything you need for assembly. The next process we could do is, I'll go ahead and show you guys just where we'll throw this in. I think we will change this. I've got to review it, but so we have all of these meshes that have been exported. I'm going to create I'll actually do it here in Blueprint, and I'll show you guys how we do this real fast. Again, we're pushing this off till a little bit later, but we'll actually go deeper in this one. I'm just going to simply right-click, do a new Blueprint class, name it as an actor, and I'll just call this road bike. And I'm just going to call it BP2 since I already have one in there. I'm going to double-click this. This opens up that blueprint. And then I'm simply going to go back to my meshes. Move this off. and grab all of my meshes, and we'll drag them into our blueprint, and there we go. Because they were all exported out the same and all their pivot points were zeroed, that's why we have this now. So there's our base setup. So now we have the beginnings of our blueprint, which is only we're going to control to be able to target this. Yes?
Did you have to do anything to zero the pivot points?
No. Nope, this is how all of them were brought in. You can see when I click them, all their pivot points are zeroed.
But back in the micro, did you have to do it?
Not particularly. I'll show you though how these are set up. So the bike frame itself, pivot points at 0. Same thing with the wheels, all those things. Yep. Okay, that's pretty much it. The rest has kind of been left up for questions. So that was a cram session.
So can you the textures that you already pre-applied?
Oh yeah, that's probably, I'll show you. This was because, so the ones that I imported from the FBX, I should have probably used that. That's these guys. So they come in as gray. I used for me just because, again, being an artist, I wanted to see it. I simply just went in, so forget about take this frame. I just simply went in when I had some of the materials associated and just applied 2 materials. It's purely visual. Again, all of these, so we're actually going to be targeting these material slots. It's simply just for visualization. So yes, what I grabbed were the assets that I'd already set up ahead of time versus the gray ones. But the same would apply, just dragging them.
Did you do anything special with the collapsed textures when you're setting it up? Or is it just like the normal way you set up a texture?
You're talking like material setup?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me, actually that's a good point. I'll show you how I set that up. So I'll open one of the frame ones. I'm gonna shut down Painter real quick. You guys good with Painter? I can come back to that. It's eating up my GPU right now. So on the material, so I'll just open up, for example, like frame 3, since we've been kind of using this one. How many of you guys were here when I did kind of the master materials setup? Okay. Okay, so I'll go over briefly, but obviously this doesn't look like a normal material, primarily from what's on the left here. That's because I set up a master material. So the process with that is just setting up a regular material and then create an instance of it. So I'll show you what that kind of looks like. Lots of nodes, trust me, it's not that bad. It's really, there's nothing really super fancy here, but kind of going from left to right, I just created a UV tiling parameter so I could change the UV scale. Not really applicable here, but I did pull for this from another project, so it was already there. And what I've simply done here is a texture input for my base color. I've done a base color multiply so I can do like adding color to it, changing the hue, tinting it. So that's just the tint amount, shifting the hue, desaturating it, adding a dirt contribution over it. And again, all different things that I've had with other stuff in the past. And those just simply give me different parameters I can do. So if I went into, let me see if I can find it. So that's my master material. If I just right click, create a material instance, and I open this guy. There you go. So those are all those parameters. That's all that it is. There's really nothing fancy there other than just additional control. I think what you were talking about, so one of the other ways that you could do this is, I could go in here real fast and let's just create a, I'll just create a basic mat. One thing I like to do in my workflow too is anytime I create a master, I do a dash before it. So it'll always show up to the left, but it also is a signal for me that this is a master. So I'll do this really, really basic material. We'll do no windows. I'll go into, actually, let me just do this. I'll do my frame. So I'm just going to grab 3, what I'm going to call kind of placeholders. So I want my ORM, my normal, and my diffuse. So I'll just drag these guys in here. Again, this is a crash course in creating a master material. Okay, so I've got all 3 of these. I'll separate them out a little bit. And I'm going to right click on these guys.
and do convert to texture. Nope. Convert to parameter, I believe. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now these are going to be, you can see here, this is, if you go into your, I think it's window parameter defaults, click this guy, it'll show you how your material instance will work. So I'll go to this guy and I'll just name him base color. I'll name this guy ORM, this guy normal, and then just as another little thing too, I'll select all of them in a group and I'll just call these inputs. So there we go, now they show up as inputs. I'll go ahead and plug these guys in. So if you remember our ORM occlusion, so this is going to be my ambient occlusion. Green is going to be my roughness. Blue is going to be my metallic. And then I'll plug in my normal map. Okay, so stupid simple, very basic material. You guys can probably see from the preview too, pretty close to what we had in Substance. Okay, so nothing spectacularly fancy there other than the fact that we just right-click created these as parameters. So the next step after this, if I go back to my masters here, so this is my basic mat. This is where it's important. So if I right-click, create a material instance, and I'll just say this, frame var1. So this is my material. If I open it, now I have those parameters that I can expose. So I could easily just go in, say, okay, that's good, that's my base frame. I'll duplicate this guy, name him var2, go in here, check these so they're actually editable, go back to my textures on my frame, and then I can go in here, drag my base color, and then my ORM, and the normal's the same, and now I have my material. So I didn't have to go through and set this up each time. The other thing that's really cool about this too, again, why I'm such a huge proponent of master materials, I can at any point go back to this master, which again is this guy where I have my parameters. And let's say, for example, that in my workflow, I exported my base colors out, but I overblew them. So I didn't have a balanced scene, so they're way brighter than I need to. I could easily just come in here and add, like say, for example, a multiply node. You can do these, I always do it by shorthand. If you hold 1 down, it'll give you a single vector, 2 will give you a 2 vector, and 3 will give you a 3 vector RGB, green and blue, 1, 2, 3, name it. But in this case, I just need a value, which is this, right click, convert to parameter, so then I can expose it, I can see it, and I'll name this base color multiply. I'll plug it in here, plug this in. Something to note too, when you create those parameters, you notice how it got black? Because my default value is 0, so I'll set this to 1. I'm not going to worry about a slider min max, but you can with those. If you notice here that we have a slider now, that slider min max will stop those values, but it doesn't stop you from actually inputting higher values. So I'll keep that, and I will save this. Again, this is our master material. So if I go back to my variations, you can see now every single one of my variations now has that parameter. So if everything was too bright, I can just go back in and tweak it on the fly. And that's it. So, I mean, you can set that up as complex as you want for this particular instance, because what we created in Substance was pretty close. This would probably be fine. Just plug in the maps, and that's good to go. So yeah, this is what we'll target. We're actually targeting material instances for the demo. Cool. What else? Any other questions? Anything you guys want to run over? Yes.
Can you open up an example of what bulk editing again?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to open up the textures from the frame. I'll just select these guys, right-click, Asset Actions, and bulk edit via property matrix. Not all of the parameters that you see, for example, if I were to open this guy, I've got a bunch of different settings. Some things aren't actually editable in the bulk property matrix, but if you expand all these, you'll see all the different things that you can do with it. So super helpful.
That's just the number of user interfaces I work on that does such a lousy job of bulk editing. It's nice to see one that looks like you could really take advantage of. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. This was a hallelujah moment with the first time I found this, because it wasn't really ever known. And the amount of frustration I had going into this, and then when I found that, made my day a lot better.
That is the first time I've seen that.
Yep. Yeah, there's a bunch of different things that you can kind of tweak in it. Again, everything that's exposed. Now, something that's interesting to note about this, so when you make the changes over here, it should propagate. Let me see if it does it. Of course, it's going to compile servers. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Sometimes I think it does it automatically. These guys are masked, no compression. Okay, yeah. So you do have to select them, I believe, from there, and then you can change them. Texture group. I'm just missing it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, let me double check this. I want to say that you don't have to have them selected. Okay, yeah, so you can change them individually, so you do have to have them selected. One thing that's interesting to note too is that, so for example, if I select 3 of these and I do the same thing, asset action, bulk edit, notice it opens a new tab. So it's kind of interesting how it does that. Just be aware that, I think it will change it no matter which tab you have, but just be aware that it'll open a tab for each time you do. It's not like a dynamic property window. Cool. That concludes the presentation. Actually, that does conclude, at least as far as me shoving all kinds of information down you guys' throats. So at this point, I mean, we still have, it's actually about an hour or so. So if there's things you guys want to cover, questions you want to ask, anything about that pipeline, that workflow, floor is open now.
Demonstrations of what people are working on.
Yeah, anybody have anything? No.
I see a lot of screens here.
I can bring it
Next time. Cool, okay. No questions. Really? Or is it just?
No, it was pretty straightforward, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
You use Maya for your imports. Let's see here. If you are, again, going on the cheap and don't want to pay for Maya, yes, you can download stuff off the internet, but then is there like any UV unwrapping available within Unreal, or am I just kind of stuck if I don't get decent UVs out of what I download?
I don't believe there's any primary UVs. Unreal will automatically generate live map UVs, but I don't know if any. I think the only tool that's available right now is Blender. But it's notorious for not working too well with Unreal right now.
Fortnite.
Yeah.
Kind of switched over to Lightwave 2019.
Lightwave's not bad. I think the thing with this particular workflow, because we're working with more static assets, as long as you can export to an FBX, you're okay. Because our textures are being authored somewhere else. Our materials are being authored directly in Unreal. So as long as you can get an FBX out, you're okay.
Yeah, 2019 updated their FBX and also have the Lightning. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Maya does.
Cool. Yeah, it is absolutely just highway robbery what Autodesk does.
Blender, if you get the text tools add-on for Blender and then UV Packmaster, that basically 100% replicates as far as my needs have ever gone, like Maya's Unwrap, which I used Maya for a little while, and then I was Blender before that. I switched to Maya for a while. I hated it, and then I went back to Blender, and then I eventually went back to Maya. And I kind of like figured out what I was doing and got like the workflow figured out, and then I was just having so many issues. It was like crashing nonstop, and I just had to delete my user prefs. That was the only solution anybody ever gave me, was just delete your user prefs, and I had to like constantly just reset my user prefs, and then like something else would go wrong, and I'd delete those, and then so I was just like, I'm just gonna go back to Blender, and then yeah, the one thing about Maya that I really liked was their UV packing algorithm is really good, and their unwrap features are just like, like kind of a lot more, modern. That's like one of the main things that they recently added. In, like,
Just curious, what was the last version of Maya you used?
It was 2017. Okay.
So it
Yeah,
was
2018 and 2019.
No, it was 2018. Yeah, whichever one was more recent. Before I haven't used 2019, which just came out, but yeah, Text Tools, which was originally an add-on developed by a guy for 3ds Max, and then he switched to Blender and he ported the add-on, and then UV Pack Max. There's like 100% like the same packing algorithm from Maya, basically in Blender.
I will say this as a caveat that I know a lot of times it's easier to go the free route. It's difficult because I've been there too, poor and broke, and you don't want to spend $250 a month on software. I think my LT you can use for free, and then switch your license per month. So if you need to buy it as like a monthly basis. My only recommendation, especially from a professional standpoint, is Blender's not bad, but if you're native to Maya, that you'll hit that crest point, especially on freelance, where you'll start getting a lot more work, and then you can justify. I still can't justify the price tag. What am I saying? But like you'll at least be able to support it better, and that's a huge thing because again, workflow in Maya, especially now with modeling stuff, it actually makes me happy, which is saying a lot because I hate unpacking UVs and but the way it works now is just it's buttery smooth.
I have Maya, but the license comes up in April, so I lightweight was $300.
Yep.
To upgrade my license.
Mm-hmm. It really just depends. I mean, if your primary thing is artistry, being an artist, acquire it.
And that's where we're going with the whole, for those of us programmers who just want to go pull content. And I, as a programmer, I could not make heads or tails of Blender when I first attempted it. Now, mind you, this was a good 10 years ago, and Blender was relatively new at the time.
Yeah, Blender's gotten some pretty good backing from the community, and they're coming full steam. I think the only other option in this case is just knowing ours, buying a case of beer. It's probably more than they get paid now. So. Yes.
Okay. What's the difference between a texture and material?
Texture and material. So a texture is your flat. Flat. If you remember the example I gave with when you're applying textures and materials in 3D, you take an orange, cut it down the middle, unfold it, pull the skin off, lay it flat, and paint it. What you paint is the texture. So that's the flat 2D texture. Your material. And I'll open one here too. Your material is a greater set of parameters that use the texture. I'll go over top. So, for example, in a physically based rendering workflow, so that's pretty much Unity, Unreal, that's everything right now. In there, you're going to have other parameters that are going to dictate whether something's metallic or dielectric. Dielectric being like flat, matte, like cloth. Metal being metalness. So you'll use a texture map to tell the engine which parts are dielectric, which are metallics, black or white, right? So by associating those, the engine knows how to interpolate those. So I'll show you real quick on this one because it's a pretty good example. So in our occlusion roughness map, if I go to, so blue is our metallic. So it's probably difficult to see. There's actually some speckles of dirt in here in this one. So there's small bits of little gray in there on top of the white. So it's going to tell the material that anything that's white, you're pure metallic. Anything that's kind of gray, you're not quite. So when that's applied in this particular one, if you remember kind of that chain, that workflow where it goes into metallic, it's going to tell this material that it's metallic. But I can override that, so I can take this down. If I take this down to 0, you notice how now it looks more like plastic? That's what that's doing. So the material is, the material is handling that information to present what you see. And there's other things too with the material you can do, like some fancy Fresnel blending, shadings, translucency, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. What else? Any other questions? Anything? Nothing. Cool. Okay. Sweet. That's all I have.
give us a quick preview of next month of just describing what the top.
Yes, gonna be awesome stuff. I'm gonna sheepishly give myself a cop out. This week has been, well, hell, the past how many weeks? 3-4 weeks have been great, and then absolute nightmare in terms of scheduling for me. So I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say I put this together in the past 48 hours. For next week, though, we're going to do the whole level and hopefully be able to get this done. I'm going to go quick, but the actual road bike setup. So we're going to cover with that. If I open this guy, I'll go in. Is setting up this kind of pseudo environment, so a little bit of lights. This is, funny enough, that's actually just a substance material I downloaded for tiles. But just kind of building this beautiful little kind of box that we'll present things in. So we'll set that up, and then we'll go through the kind of the basic setup of the road bike. We won't go too deep, but all the components are kind of the same for each one. So we'll set up one, we'll go in depth in that one, and then you guys will hopefully have enough information to rinse and repeat from there.
And we're speaking of the programmatically assigning the textures and materials.
Yeah, in fact, let me, I'll show you guys. I think I remember where it's at. That was the one we just created. Yeah, so there's actually a couple of ways we do this. We control the logic through a separate blueprint actor and target another one. So I'll show you kind of this. This is going to be really hard to see. So create a different function called variation 2 click. So that's the second one. We'll associate with the UI widget, but we'll go into there, grab any of the road bikes that are in the scene. So it could be any of them, doesn't have to be a specific one. In fact, actually, if I show you guys the game view, that's all the setup we're going to be doing. Again, it's a lot of copying and pasting, but it allows me to select any of these. But yeah, this is all we have for the demo. It will go through then, and through a sequence, it will target each of the different materials, and it will set them. So we'll also create this. So getting the road bike components. So if you remember, we actually imported, I think it was 19 different components. But as I set it up, I realized that I didn't need to change the bolt. What? Oh, yeah, jeez. I need to just give you controls. My bad. But I realized I didn't need to change like the bolt colors because there's only one bolt color or something. So we'll just set up the components that we want to target. And then by simply clicking, we'll go through, and then we actually set the material we want. So we'll set up that one. And there's a bunch of different other things. So here's like variation 5. Again, that is the logic blueprint that we'll throw. So this one we can just throw into the level. That's in game mode. That doesn't help. We'll just throw that into the level, and so that handles anything we throw into it. And I want to say that for our actual blueprint, yep, we're simply just broadcasting out of that blueprint the components, and that's what we're targeting. So it makes things very easy. So that's what we're going to step through next week. Again, it should be. I'm realizing that 5 is cramming a lot. But again, most of it should be pretty simple. A lot of just rinse and repeat. Yeah.
For what it's worth, I found this pretty clear. You are feeling like there's a lot here, but it's
cool.
It's pretty basic.
Yeah. I mean, there's artists, you guys probably know that there's a lot of depth you could go into a lot of stuff. But my hope is that the takeaway would be, this is kind of a hot topic that some people are doing it, some do it well, some don't. But like visualizing a product in a real-time engine, is great just for the fact that I can go in here, I can see everything, I can get in close on components, I can put it in action. It's a really cool medium to be able to view things, and you're using game technology for it. And so that's my hope, is that really this isn't about how you create an awesomely beautiful bike. I didn't model this; somebody else did at some time. But the packaging, the presentation of it is the critical part. That's what sells it.
So I have a problem. Don't just leave it. Just don't. Okay.
Oh, the chain intersection.
Chain, yes.
Yep, I know.
The spokes.
Yeah. You know what? Okay.
Yeah.
He's doing us a service.
You, sir? Get out. No. It's, yeah, I know the chain intersect a little bit.
You don't get to do what he does without having an eye for exactly that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, so from start to finish, this was actually put together on our side in 2.5 weeks. And that was only part-time, so. Yeah, it was a rapid prototype together, but I figured it was a good use case for everybody. See, you guys are all enamored with the cinematics, though.
I mean, it looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Well, it's just, $150 have the spokes in the center of the gears.
Can you make it faster, better?
I would say I actually do have a complaint form I'll give to you, and we can send it to the guy.
No, it's just.
No, it is. Honestly, what happened is it's aligned with it. It's just it wasn't part of the animation component when we exported.
Well, I mean, even there you can see the spokes in the center of the wheel, or the gear section.
I don't know. What do you mean? Where?
So.
Yeah, I know this folks.
Yeah.
Yep. Continuity error, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, that's not on you. That's on the original MOS.
Yeah, but I mean, the point here is that if you consider if you consider from a cost of you have an idea you want to present to a company, right?
Oh, yeah.
Say you wanted to present this to a car company. I mean, a bike's kind of cool. I don't know if a bike shop would have this, and you have a week and $200. You can produce it. Minus all your licenses for my all of that stuff, but assuming you have the assets, you can do this.
I was about to say, and buying the bike, you get $50 at the end.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, that's it. I mean, again, if you guys got questions, you want to talk about anything else, you want to see stuff up close, I think most of the stuff you can use and see.
You first, please.
So kind of going back to what we were talking about at the beginning with technical artists, is that what you're seeing the industry going towards, or what the industry is looking for more?
My professional opinion is, I would say that it's probably good to know and understand at least what my definition of an artist is, which is not necessarily my definition, but for what it's worth, my opinion about an artist is somebody who can interpret the world that they see and alter it in such a fashion to make it unique. So, that's where, if you want to recreate a stone pillar that we have here, can you do that? That definition is completely devoid of any tool, any piece of software. That's where the real artistry comes in. So by you being able to interpret that and recreate that, that's indispensable. That's what you want. I think the advantage and why, kind of seeing a little bit of shift with the technical artistry is more along the lines of how quickly can you make that? And what if I want to change those pebbles to blue pebbles? How quickly can we do that? That's really honestly the industry tug and pull is speed versus quality, and it kind of just ebbs and flows. You get new pieces of software that make it faster, but now you've got. I mean, I could go through to give you an example for like Substance. I can't tell you how many portfolios I've seen with the scratch filter, and it's like clearly you just applied a scratch filter, but there's no character to it. That's the artistry, interpreting the world. Where do scratches form? How do they form? What about dirt? Where does dirt form? So. I think if I hedge my bets, the valuable person in the future is going to be the person that can recreate those things beautifully, but understands technical tools to be quick and create variations and all that kind of stuff.
If I may actually add to your definition, I completely agree about the artistry of being able to recreate the item. What makes a technical artist different is, in my experience, they are the ones who can communicate on a programmer level because whatever that left brain, right brain thing, Artists definitely go one way, programmers typically go all the way the other, and they don't meet in the middle very well, and that's where the technical artist is the one person that is so rare and so necessary in that they can talk both sides.
Yeah, I think another aspect of technical artistry that is really good. The film industry is actually a good example of this. Is that in the pipeline you'll have like animation and then tech animators. Big difference is animators will do the very specific body movements. Technical animators will go in and add hair, cloth, the subtle details. In game development, technical artists can also go in and take like a what you call that, like a banner, like medieval banner, big piece of cloth. Artists could make that and put it in there, and it's like static. That's boring. Technical artists can go, oh, I'm going to add some wind dynamics and do vertice paintings and stuff like that, and now all of a sudden it flows in the wind. You're like, that's cool. So, it's just art on another level. Cool. Well, I got a question too. Show and tell. What are you guys working on right now? If you can disclose, you're not on your NDA.
So I don't know if anybody's going to Comic-Con this year, the Planet Comic-Con. So the company I work for and develop for, we just made a small like arcade game for VR that we partnered with Boulevard Brewery.
Nice.
Their newest IPA that just came out. And so we're gonna have a booth there where you get to come in and try some samples. I think we're with, I want to say, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's Penny Arcade.
Okay.
It's like old-fashioned like arcade cabinets. So we're all three partnering, and we're gonna have a booth there that you're gonna be able to come and play our game and play a couple different things. So
Do you have any videos you could show of it?
Not right now.
Okay.
No.
He's still got to write it.
No, we're like 2 weeks away from being completely finished.
Cool. Okay.
But we want to save the big reveal for people that are actually there.
Yeah.
So,
No.
yeah.
When you can, would love to see it.
Oh yeah.
I can bring it in for show and tell.
After the fact.
I don't know. It'll be something I'm asking them. They invited us to go tour their facility, so I'll
Nice.
be getting a lot of those answers. But yeah, it was something pretty cool. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What else? What is everybody else working on?
There's been my intent is to become an environment artist, or that's like always what my interest has been. Like, like just a year ago, I started in like just 3D in general, and I was kind of just like first like, ooh, cool, making like particle effects and like interesting stuff, and just doing whatever. And then as it went along, I was like, well, every time I like drive in the city and I see a cool piece of architecture or a cool prop or like something that's like just looks like worn down or something, it's like I don't want that. So I've always just kind of hedged towards environments and props and things like that. And then I've just been trying to hone my end goal really towards improving myself in that regard. And for the past like 2 months, I was working on like an environment portfolio piece, and then I finished that, and then classic me, I get super depressed and I don't know where to go after that, and I'm just like trying to like figure out my next project, and it's kind of I've been in that for like the past 3 or 4 weeks where I've just been like starting a new project and kind of not really. I just started another environment, but it's like every time, like environment art is not like oh cool, like a little weekly project. It's my next project is like 3 months of my life,
You ever thought about doing dioramas?
Yeah, I do, and then
you don't.
Yeah, it's like every single time I kind of like that's always been my thing, as I'm just kind of like manic depressive, so I just get like that, and I just get super into something, and then I kind of like get like super not into it. So right now I'm just kind of like working on like blocking out a project, and it's kind of in the beginning phases with a lot of just like this is horrible, and eventually it'll be good, but right now I just
How are you promoting your work?
I'm not really promoting it at all right now. I'm not at the point where I feel like I'm trying to promote it. I have it on ArtStation, like my portfolio.
Don't do works in progress on our station.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Get on like Polycount or.
I go to Dynasty Discord. Dynasty is a streamer who does environment art. He works at Ubisoft Massive in Malmö, Sweden. But there's a lot of guys who are specifically geared towards environment art, and they get critiques and things like that.
I was like, I think that's what you're getting at. That's some of the best peer pressure. It keeps you going. That somebody else is watching.
Yeah.
Have you tried some of the ArtStation like competitions before that?
Yeah, I mean before my last project, was a Polycount Environment Art Challenge, and then before that I did the Fuel Japan ArtStation Challenge, which was kind of hellish because I learned a lot in that, but at the end I was just like, this is horrible, so I want to like actually try a real project where I feel like I know what I'm doing, and I did. Like I learned a lot, but it's like every project by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, this is horrible, let's do another one that's better.
Welcome to, I've been doing this for 15 years and it's still saying, like, why did I do that? God, I know better, but yeah, that's growth.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's where I'm at, basically.
Because, if you're trying to really make this your living, you've got to be promoting what you're doing at the same time, because that's time you're losing in the promotion if you're not already doing it.
Well, yeah, I just feel like I'm more at the point where I'm just like working on getting my skill set to a level that I feel is worthy of promotion before I actually invest.
No, seriously, there is no such thing, because you will never reach that point. That's the point we're trying to make. It has nothing to do with however good you really are. You will never feel ready.
Sweet.
I'm a 20-year game dev. 15 years for you. I don't know. Yeah, you were new, I believe, right? So we are speaking from experience in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. We got questions from the Twitter.
Does anyone here follow the KC Unreal dev Twitter or the Rhino Games Twitter?
As of tonight, the KC one, because I knew that it existed.
If you guys would like to follow, what we try and post is just articles and stuff that will help with game development. We try and focus on all different aspects of development. But if there's certain topics that you're more interested in, you'd like to see more of, I personally really like to post a lot of the GDC talks or the Vault. I think those are really good. But if there's anything that you guys really like, something that you'd like me to watch out for, please just let me know, and I can make sure that I get that out there. If you guys want to give us a follow, please do. But if you're not on Twitter, I understand.
By the way, Brooke is actually the one that manages both of those Twitters for us.
GDC is March 19th.
Yes. I'm so bitter. I'm on the fence. I really want to go, but.
Well, if you do go, you get to go see my boss talk.
I know. Actually, I've been talking to Amy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, GDC would be cool. It's just it sucks the cost of just getting out.
Oh, I know.
Are any of you guys planning on going to GDC?
Love to, but I'm broke. So.
Yeah. We'll rent a bus and yeah.
Back when it actually had independent games festival, when you could afford that part. But no, not these days.
I will say I did look at their Expo Pass is offering a little bit more now, and it's only $350, which is kind of nice. Then you just got to get hotel lodging. All access is cool, but you find that one rich cousin or friend that will buy it, and then you have access to the vault for a year. I did. In fact, actually, Amanda. I forgot to mention this one. Amanda Box from Epic. So the Epic talks will be live streamed this year as well, for free. So you should be able to watch those. Yeah, lots of good stuff. I love GDC. I'm a sponge for knowledge, and it's like there's not enough energy drinks to keep you awake for 10 hours. It's so good though. Cool. Okay. Break, or we can just all just sit here, just stare at and see each other. It doesn't matter. But cool. No, thank you guys. So yeah, that wraps it up. We still got, like I said, about another 30 minutes if you guys want to hang around, talk, ask questions. Next next month. I think it was the 26th. I said last Tuesday, same time, same place, and we'll go over some more deeper stuff. So cool.
Works nicely.
Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for coming too. Thank you everybody who joined the live stream too. Cool.
Thank those groups that started up.